are at stage 7, paragraph page 600. Okay, almost at the last page.
Oh,
And
last.
our last headword was strike, new word type of lesson. Okay, so let's start with revision. Okay,
Okay.
overshoot. Okay, here we go. First question. What's the difference between a defining relative clause and a non-defining relative clause? What's the difference between a defining relative clause and a non-defining relative clause? The difference between
The
a
difference between
defining relative clause
defining relative clause
and a non-defining
and a non-defining
relative clause
relative
is
clause
that a
is that
defining relative clause
a defining relative clause
identifies which person
identify which
or
person
thing we are
or,
thinking about,
or thing we are thinking about,
whereas a non-defining
whereas a non-defining
relative clause
relative
simply
clause
gives us
simply gives us
extra information
extra
about
information
them.
about them.
Give me an example of a sentence containing a defining relative clause. Give me an example of a sentence containing a defining relative clause, please. The milk that
The milk
she bought
that
this
she
morning
bought this
is
morning
in the fridge.
is in the fridge.
Give me an example of a sentence containing a non-defining relative clause. Give me an example of a sentence containing a non-defining relative clause, please. My new glasses,
My new
which
glasses,
I bought yesterday,
which I bought yesterday,
are really expensive.
are really expensive.
Very good. How is a non-defining clause separated from the main part of the sentence? How is a non-defining clause separated from the main part of the sentence? A non-defining clause
A non-defining
is
clause
separated
is
from the
separated
main part of the
from the main
sentence
part of the
by
sentence
commas.
by commas.
Very good. Where can we use when can we use the relative pronoun that instead of who or which? When can we use the relative pronoun that instead of who or which? We can use
We can
the
use
relative pronoun
a relative
that
pronouns is that
instead of who
instead of who
or which
or
in
which.
defining clauses.
In defining
We
clauses,
cannot use that
we cannot use that
in non-defining clauses.
in non-defining clauses.
Give me an example. Give me an example, please. The biscuits
The
that I
biscuits
ate
that I ate
were very tasty.
were very tasty.
Very good. Correct the mistake in this sentence, please. London, that is the capital of England, is a big city. Correct the mistake in this sentence, please. London, that is the capital of England, is a big city. London,
London,
which is the capital
which is the
of
capital
England,
of
is a
England,
big city.
is a big city.
Very good. What does the idiom for good mean? What does the idiom for good mean? The idiom
The idiom
for good means
for good means
forever.
forever.
Give me an example. Give me an example, please. They're such
They
a
are such
perfect couple.
a perfect
I'm
couple.
sure
I'm
they'll
sure
stay together for
they are
good.
stay together for
For good.
good.
Very good. What am I doing? What am I doing? You're waving your hand.
You are waving your hand.
What happens to the branch of a tree when it waves too much in the wind? What happens to the branch of a tree when it waves too much in the wind? When the branch
When
of
the
a tree
branch of a tree
waves too much
waves too
in the
much
wind,
in the
it
wind,
breaks
it
and
breaks
falls to the
and,
ground.
and falls to the ground.
On what occasions do we wave our hands? On what occasions do we wave our hands? We wave our hands
We wave our
when
hands
we say goodbye
when we say
to
goodbye
someone
to
or
someone
when we want
or when we want
somebody to notice us
somebody to
from
notice
a
us
distance.
from a
Where
distance.
is it pleasant to travel by boat when the waves of the sea are very high? Is it pleasant to travel by boat when the waves of the sea are very high? No, it
No,
isn't pleasant
it isn't
to
present
travel by boat
to travel by boat
when the waves of
when
the
the
sea
waves of the
are
sea
very high.
are very high
Why not? Why not? Because it
because
can be dangerous.
can be
And
dangerous and
also because
also because
we can get seasick.
we can get seasick.
Reggie, do you prefer wavy hair rather than straight hair? Do you prefer wavy hair rather than straight hair? Yes or no?
No,
I don't prefer
I don't prefer
wavy hair
wavy hair
rather than straight
rather
hair.
than straight hair.
Very good. What do you recommend that people do in order to succeed in life? What do you recommend that people do in order to succeed in life? I recommend
I
that
recommend
people
that people
work hard
work hard
in order to
in
succeed
order
in
to
life.
succeed in life.
Very good. Which film would you recommend seeing at the cinema at the moment? Which film would you recommend seeing at the cinema at the moment? I'd recommend
I recommend
seeing
seeing Minions
at the cinema at the
at the
moment.
cinema at the moment.
Very good. If someone said they wanted a quiet holiday, which part of your country would you recommend to them? If someone said they wanted a quiet holiday, which part of your country would you recommend to them? If someone said
If someone
they
said
wanted a
they
quiet
wanted
holiday,
a quiet holiday,
I'd recommend
I'd recommend Fukuoka
Fukuoka to them.
to them.
Very good. How many grams make a pound? How many grams make a pound? About
About
454
454
grams
gram
make a pound.
make a pound.
Very good. What, generally speaking, is the difference between an injury and a wound? What, generally speaking, is the difference between an injury and a wound? Generally speaking,
Generally
the
speaking,
difference between
the difference
an
between
injury
an
and a
injury
wound
and
a,
wound
is that we
is that
use the word
we use the word
injury for
injury
something
for
we
something
receive by accident
we receive by an
and wound
accident and
for
wound
something
for
we
something
receive from fighting.
we receive from fighting.
Very good. Have you ever seen anyone badly injured as the result of an accident? Have you ever seen anyone badly injured as the result of an accident? Yes or no?
No,
I've never seen
I've never
anyone
seen anyone
badly injured
badly injured
as the result
as a
of
result
an accident.
of an accident.
Do you know anyone who has been wounded in a war? Do you know anyone who has been wounded in a war? Yes or no?
Yes,
I know someone
I know
who
someone
has been wounded
who has been wounded
in a war.
in a war.
Are your feelings easily wounded? Are your feelings easily wounded? Yes or no?
No,
My feelings
my
aren't
feelings
easily wounded.
aren't easily wounded.
Very good. What do we mean if when we say that somebody is not being sincere? What do we mean if we say that somebody is not being sincere? If we say
If we
that
say
somebody
that
is
somebody
not being
is not
sincere,
being
we
sincere,
mean that
we mean that
they are not expressing
they are not
their
expressing
true feelings.
their true feelings.
Feelings. Very good. Okay. Have you ever done any voluntary work? Have you ever done any voluntary work? Yes or no?
Yes,
I've done
I've
a
done
voluntary work.
a voluntary work.
Very good. Do you think children ought to be made to study, or do you think studying ought to be voluntary? Do you think children ought to be made to study, or do you think studying ought to be voluntary? I think children
I think children
ought to be made
ought to be made
to study.
to study
Why? Why? Because they
because
won't study
they won't
on
study
their own.
on their own.
Very good. Okay. What's the difference between separate and separate? What's the difference between separate and separate? The difference between
The difference between
separate
separate
and separate
and
is
separate
that separate
is that
is the
separate
verb,
is the verb,
whereas separate
whereas
is
separate
the adjective.
is the adjective.
Very good. How do we begin a formal letter or email if we don't know the name of the person we're writing to? How do we begin a formal letter or email if we don't know the name of the person we're writing to? We begin
We
a
begin
formal letter
a formal
or
letter
email
or
with the
email
words
with the
Dear
word
Sir
dear
or
sir
Dear Madam
or dear
if
madam
we don't know the
if
name
we don't know the
of
name
the person
of the
we're
person
writing to.
we are writing to.
Very good. How do we generally end such a letter or email? How do we generally end such a letter or email? We generally end
We generally
such
end
a letter
such
or
a letter
email
or email
with yours
with
faithfully
yours faithfully
or something less
or
formal
something less
like
formal
kind regards
like kind regards
or best regards.
or best regards.
Very good. If we know the name of the person we're writing to, how do we begin a formal letter or email? If we know the name of the person we're writing to, how do we begin a formal letter or email? If we know the
If we
name
know the
of the
name
person
of the person
we are writing to,
we are writing
we
to,
begin a
we
formal
begin
letter
a formal letter
or email
or
with
email
dear and then the name.
with their and the
Name.
name.
Very good. And how do we end such a letter? And how do we end such a letter? We end such
We
a
end
letter
such a letter
with the words
with the
yours
word
sincerely,
yours sincerely
or again, kind
or
regards,
again kind
or
regards
best regards.
or best regards.
Very good. How do we usually begin an informal letter or email? How do we usually begin an informal letter or email? We usually begin
We usually begin
an informal letter
an, an informal letter
or email
or email
with the words
with the word
dear name
their name
or hi name.
or hi name.
Very good. Then how can we end such a letter or email? How can we end such a letter or email? We can end
We can end
such a letter
such
or
a letter
email
or email
with the words
with
best
the word
wishes,
best wishes,
love, etc.
love, etc.
Very good. What is a reference library? What is a reference library? A reference
A
library
reference library
is a library
is a library
where we are allowed
where we are allowed
to read books,
to read a
but
book,
we are not allowed
but we are not
to borrow
allowed
them
to borrow
and
them
take them home.
and take them home.
Where if we are answering a formal letter, how do we often begin our letter? If we are answering a formal letter, how do we often begin our letter? If we are answering
If we are answering
a formal letter,
a formal letter,
we often begin our
we
letter
often begin our letter
with reference to
with reference to
your letter
your
of
letter
19th January.
of 19 January.
Very good. What do we mean by the word goods? What do we mean by the word goods? By the word goods,
By the word
we mean
goods,
anything
we mean
that
anything
can be bought
that can be
or
bought
sold.
or sold.
Very good. If you order goods online but they don't arrive, can you cancel the order and get a refund? If you order goods online but they don't arrive, can you cancel the order and get a refund? Yes. If I
Yes,
order
if I
goods
order
online
goods
but
online
they don't arrive,
but they don't
I
arrive,
can cancel
I
the
can
order
cancel
and
the
get a
order
refund.
and get refund.
Yeah, get a refund.
Get a refund.
Very good. How do
Okay,
we know when a dog is in a good condition? How do we know when a dog is in good condition? We know a
we
dog
know a
is
dog
in good condition
is in good condition
when its coat
when it's
is
cold.
shining,
Hmm?
is shining,
It's shining
and its nose
and its
is
nose
cold and wet.
is cold and wet.
Very good. What do people go on strike? Oh, why do people go on strike?
Why
People
do
go
people
on strike
people go on strike?
because they want
Because
more
they want
money
or more money
or better working
or
conditions.
better working conditions.
Very good. Do you think that people should have the right to strike? Do you think people do you think that people should have the right to strike? Yes or no?
Yes,
I think
I think I,
people
I think people
should have the
should
right
have
to strike.
the right strike
To strike.
to strike.
Very good. Okay, that's the end of our revision. Let's have new word.
Okay, new word.
Okay, repeat. Post.
Post
Yeah. Post.
post
Post office.
post office,
Post box.
post box,
Letter box. Very
letterbox.
good. Okay, listen. The word post is a verb. It means to send a letter. It is the synonym of the word mail. Post mail. Post office is a noun. It is a place where we can send letters. A post box is also a noun. It is a box in a public area into which we put letters that we want to send. Letterbox is also a noun. It is a box in front of a door or a wall near the entrance of a house or other buildings through which letters, etc. are posted. Okay, so let's practice. When you post a letter, do you take it to the post office or do you just put it in the nearest post box? When you post a letter, do you take it to the post office or do you just take it to the nearest post box? When I post a letter,
When I post a letter,
I just put it
I just put it
in the nearest post box.
in the near
In the nearest post box.
in the nearest post box.
Very good. Okay. Where do we find a letterbox? Where do we find a letterbox? We find
We find
a letterbox
a letterbox
in front of a door.
in front of the door.
Very good. Next, repeat. Manage.
Damage?
Manage.
Ah, manage.
Very good.
Manage.
Manager.
Manager.
Very good. So, manage is a verb. It means to control, take care, and make decisions about the business.
Uh-huh.
Okay, manage. Manager is a noun. It means someone who is in charge of a business. For example, a manager manages a business. Let's practice. If you can't manage to answer a question, what does the teacher do? If you can't manage to answer a question, what does the teacher do? If I can't
If
manage
I can't
to
manage
answer a question,
to answer a
the
question,
teacher helps me.
the teacher helps me.
Very good. What does a manager do? What does a manager do? A
Right.
manager
A manager
manages a business
manages a
or
business
part of a business.
or part of the
That
business
is, he
that
makes
is he
important decisions
he make important
about
decisions
how the business
about how the
operates.
business operate.
Very good. Next, repeat. Beauty.
Beauty.
Very good. Okay, listen. The word beauty is a noun, which means being beautiful. For
Beautiful.
example, she is very beautiful. Or we can say she's such a beauty. Okay,
Beauty.
let's
Such a-
practice. Which do you think it's better to possess? Brains, beauty, or money? Which do you think it's better to possess? Brains, beauty, or money? I think
I
it's
think
better to possess.
it's better to process.
Possess. Mhm.
Process.
Possess like means have. Which one?
Have.
Brains, beauty, or money?
Hmm. Money.
Money. Very good. One more. I think
I think
it's better to
it's
possess
better to process
money.
money.
Why? Why? Because
Why? Because why? Why?
Mhm.
Because money. Mm.
because let's say if you have money, okay,
If you have money,
very good. If
はい。
you have money,
If you have money,
you can study
you can study. Ah, はい。
and change your appearance. Change
し
your appearance.
あ、change your appearance.
Your appearance
Your
to
appearance.
make
あ
you
はは。
beautiful.
Make you beautiful. Yes.
Yeah, like plastic surgery. Okay, very good. Okay, next repeat. Corn, like
Home.
popcorn. Corn,
Comb. Comb.
cereal.
Cereal.
Very good. Okay, listen. The words cereal and corn are both nouns. Corn is a tall plant that has yellow seeds that are eaten as a vegetable and used to produce many food products. We can make bread, cereal, and many other types of food from corn.
Mhm.
Let's practice. What can we make from corn? What can we make from corn? We can make bread,
We can make bread,
cereal,
cereal,
and many other types
and many other
of
types
food from
of
corn.
food from corn.
Very good. Next, repeat. Weed.
Weed.
Very good. Okay, listen. The word weed.
Weed.
The word weed is a noun. A weed is a plant that grows quickly where it is not wanted and covers or kills more desirable plants. For
Uh-huh.
example, we pull weeds in the garden out of the ground and either burn them or throw them away. Okay,
Mm,
so let's
mhm.
practice. What do we do with weeds in the garden? What do we do with weeds in the garden? We pull weeds
We pull weeds
out of the garden
out of the garden
and either burn them
and either burn them
or throw them away.
or throw them away.
Very good. Next, repeat. Let's have idiom 12. Just the job.
Just, sorry,
Just
just
the
the
job.
job. Just the job.
Very good. Okay, listen. The idiom just the job means exactly what is needed. For example, a nice cold beer at the end of a hard day's work is just the job, just what I needed. Let's
Just what I
practice.
need.
What does the idiom just the job mean? What does the idiom just the job mean? The idiom
The idiom
just the job means
just the job mean
exactly what is needed.
exactly what is needed.
Very good. Give me an example. Give me an example, please. That trip to the countryside
That trip to the countryside
last weekend
last weekend
was just the job.
was best the job.
Was just the job.
Was just the job.
I feel so relaxed now.
I feel so relaxed now.
Very good. Okay, so now let's move on to reading.
Okay, reading.
Okay, so our reading is at stage 7, paragraph page 515. And our
15.
last headword was trial. Okay,
Trial.
start with introduce from abroad.
Okay. Introduce from abroad.